Hey, HCDA, and today, after setting up our superior core facility, it is time to get into the endgame of Modulus. If you've been following along, you should have a facility that is producing something like 90 of the yellow dye per minute. And the nice thing about that is, since the last time around we used that massive block way of painting them, we actually only use currently 30 of them per minute, so we can do this 3 times more, which is exactly what I've set up over here, well, at least one of those facilities. Is what I've set up over here, so that we can start using these yellow blocks to make all the yellow stuff that we need in order to start making yellow signs. Yes, I am starting with the superior processing plant, so that's the science producing plant for the yellow signs, because science takes forever and you need a lot of it, so you might as well get that started as soon as possible. So the yellow science is going to need 4 inputs, the 3 block types that we have over here, and then in addition to that, it's going to need the superior cores to make those yellow processors. Now, if we look at the ratios, we have one belt that takes 46 voxels, one that is going to take 96 voxels, and then we have 32 voxels. So in total, actually, what we need is 3 times 60, so 180 of those big blocks of 64 voxels per minute if we want to have 4 cranes putting in each type of these blocks. So let me walk you through it again. Let's take this as an example. So a normal block that we produce, so that's one of those basic blocks we have over here, is going to be 64 voxels. If we need 4 cranes, because we only have access to 18 cranes total, we have 4 inputs, but they all need to come in an equal ratio, so that is 4 cranes per input. Then we need 60 per minute, so that also means we need 60 of these blocks per minute. Now, I'm already producing 120 of these blocks per minute on each of these belts, so actually just one belt of yellow stuff will be enough for most of it. Not everything is going to be painted so if I want to be kind of saving some of my yellow stuff, what I can do is just add in a unpainted belt of 60 per minute and use that for everything else I need. Okay, doing some math over here, this is how that is going to look. So we have this bottom yellow belt that has 60 blocks of 64 voxels per minute, which is exactly enough to make this if we repaint the things we cut out from yellow into whatever color they need to be. And then these 2 belts combined will be exactly enough to make these parts, which happen to be exactly 50-50 yellow and something else, which is also exactly in terms of the resource what we have coming in. So we can just make the same build twice, one just using the yellow blocks and then the other one repainting the unpainted blocks wherever we need. So let's get started with the easiest one, because this is really straightforward. As always, pattern recognition is really key here. So we have a block of 4, we have another block of 4 and another block of 4, and then a 4th block of 4 in the bottom over here, 4x4 I should say. So again, slicing everything to nice 4x4 blocks is exactly what we need. Splitting all of that up into 4 belts is going to allow us to take a advanced assembler, something like this, and then stick all of that stuff together. And yeah, we do need an advanced assembler because we are making a figure that is larger than what a normal assembler can handle. Now, let's see. We also need that top layer to be repainted. And remember, this is only going to take in 30 per minute, while if I would use the 60 per minute coming in through this belt, I would have a total of 240 divided by 4 is 60 per minute coming out. Don't worry, we're going to double up on this build in a second and make sure we optimize that. But this is just a little bit more convenient. Let's paint everything white. There we go. So that's the white block that we need on the bottom over here. Now what we need to do is cut out the middle part of the big yellow thing, and then we need to split that up and paint that black. So let's see, how can we do that? Let's take an advanced stamper again, because this thing is too big. Hold on, I actually need to use some coolant. Remember, coolant is super easy to produce. You just need some base materials and a chemical plant. So bring that in from wherever is convenient for you, depending on where you're building. If you're wondering why I am doing it, I'm on the right side of the map over here, but it doesn't really matter where you do this. Okay, so let's take this thing, let's flip it around so I can see what I'm doing, and cut out the middle parts. Let's see where things are going to come out. It's over there. Okay, that's great. Now, what I think I want to do is do something like this. Hold on. Hold on, hold on. Yes, we're painting that black. That is just fine. And then we're also going to cut that. And then that's going to be flipped and do be like that. Then I am going to split that up because we need a 2x2. Well, 1x4 and a 1x4, but then we need that on two sides, so I can actually just use a normal assembler to do that. I kind of want to bring this down one notch like that. So we can do something like that. We'll see why in a second. This needs to have four pieces in between. So assuming that is doing what I wanted to do, this is going to be producing at a rate of, okay, so we have 30 per minute coming in over here. We have therefore 60 per minute, so not 120 like it's showing over here. Then that's going to be 30 per minute of these blocks. So all of this is producing at 30 per minute, which is awesome because that's exactly balanced. If we put another, not another advanced stamper, another advanced assembler over here, like so, and then we can bring in that piece. We can flip this around. Let's see, we put that on top, yeah, and then we can take the last piece and okay, this is harder than it looks, guys. Okay, this is slightly annoying, to be honest. Can I do this, guys? It's not connecting in the way I want. Oh wow, that is super annoying. Okay, after fighting with it for a little bit, I managed to position it like I wanted to. It mostly depends on the order in which you drag things, apparently. But this should be, yeah, new module created. So that's one down, two to go. Although when I say that, I can almost hear you scream, because remember, this is only producing at a rate of 240 per minute, but that's not actually what these machines allow in. So this means that this is also underutilized. We can very easily solve that by doubling up this production facility to make full use of this belt, and also, of course, double our output. Which looks something like this, a little bit more organized, and I might actually need some more coolant myself over here pretty soon, but we can easily fix that, and you can see the superior processing plant starts building, but we need the other two items to still come in. Luckily, we have the other two belts ready to do exactly that. Okay, so let's see, how are we going to make this? I'm actually going to make it a little easier on myself, because I want to basically make this, and I love that you can select these colors and filter things out. This seems to be a 4x4 piece, just like a corner of it, and then this is a 3x3 piece that fits right in there, which leaves a block. And I think if we can take that block and stamp out this part and put that on top, we will have this other thing. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Okay, so let's just start with the basic thing, and then we can do the exact same thing. Or, well, actually, no. Let's make this version first, because this is all the same color, and then we can focus on the other half. And as usual, we'll focus on making it look pretty once, you know, we have finished the build. So, let's see. First of all, we need a cutter, I think, and we're gonna cut this in two pieces, because that will give us the two thick blocks that we need, two thickness blocks. Okay, so this is going to produce 120 per minute, because this is actually 60 per minute on this belt. Okay, that is a problem, because we are going to use a stamper, and that can only handle 60. So, okay, let's flip this around, and then let's do this like that. Can I? No. I wish I could flip this around and have the different exits, like have this piece be on that part, but I don't know why I can't do that actually. I don't know. It's not the biggest problem in the world, but it would have been more convenient, because what I need to do now is I'm gonna need a second one of these stampers. I'm actually curious. If I do it like this, and then I stamp this out, then that part is going to go on the bottom. Is that this piece? Hold on. No, that's the other one. Okay. So let me flip that around and do it like that. Okay, so then we have those pieces that we need over here. Now this is the block. This block is going to go in that second build that we have over here. So for now, I'm just gonna put that in a scrapper. And then all I need to do is put a combiner like this, a assembler I mean. Let's take this. And then we're going to flip this around. I think it's like this, right? Let's double check. Yeah, so that's gonna be this half of the build. Now, we just split all of that up. So what we need to do is copy this part, mirror it and flip it. And then this should be the other half of that build. Yep. And then all I need to do is combine that. And we'll do that like so. And then we have this part. And we will take this part. Flip. Oh, I suck so much at doing this. Hello? Well, if you give me long enough, I will finish. There we go. Okay. So, that is actually the piece that we need. Now we just need the exact same thing, but with different colors. Okay, so I've copied the entire build once more and just connected it to the unpainted belt over here. Now, if you're wondering, by the way, why I'm using these scrappers, well, first of all, there's an achievement for deleting a lot of items, so this is an easy way of getting that, but it also kind of helps you to verify that everything is working at optimal efficiency while you're building something. So, you know, it's a nice way to just test things if they're working. Okay, so what I need to do is I'm making the smaller part over here. So this, let's move out this part for the moment. Now this big part can be unpainted. The small parts we're making at 60 per minute. So we're going to have to paint that, but I can only paint that with the monotoner at 30 per minute. So what I need to do is split that. And let's just do it up here, and then we can copy and paste it with the mirror. Monotoner, there we go, black, black. And then we can just recombine that back into a build like so. So if we then take this and we do it like that, that should be what we need. Let's copy it, let's flip it, let's do it like so. Hold on, what am I doing wrong? There we go. Right, that's it. No, that's not it. That's it. There we go. Okay, so that should be that half. Yep. And then all we need to do is bring in the belt. Not sure why you want to make that corner. There we go. Now the game should recognize that this is different colors but still the same shape. Yep, there we go. And this looks perfect. So that means that once we bring that one in, let's do that over here so we can keep things, well, not symmetrical for sure, but at least somewhat compact. There we go. And then hopefully I'll be able to flip that around a couple of times and slot that right in. New module created. That's what we like to hear. So let's make sure we start to build that here. For the same reason, by the way, I'm also using these scrappers at the end of these belts, because again, you can double check that you're actually using your things. Anyway, okay, that is 2 down, 1 more to go, and the one that we need to make is this tiny little piece over here. It's gonna use those solid blocks. It's going to be really straightforward, actually. And we can kind of intertwine that, I think, with this build. Hold on, let me work that out. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit more complex, or at least more spaghetti-like than I would prefer. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm bringing out those blocks that we were making before. I'm stamping the little piece out that needs to make the gap in the middle, and then I'm putting that back on top. So, you know, we get the exact shape that we need. You can actually tell, but this is the corner piece. Okay, so it's in the wrong color, but that is something we can fix in a second. Or should we fix it now? Let me think. What makes the most sense? Huh. Ooh, I think maybe actually it doesn't really matter at all. Okay, because what we're doing is this is 30 per second anyway. So if we bring this up here, something like, hold on, there we go. Something like that and that. Then if I put a monotoner in here to paint it black, then we can just combine it on here. Now we have 60 per minute. Now I'm gonna do the same build over here without the monotoners, obviously, for the yellow version of this. Okay, so I have set that up like that, so we are making those little corner pieces now here as well. I just realized that I needed, of course, to double up on the monotoner, since this is actually producing at 60 per minute, so, you know, I need 2 of them per production line to do that. So now we have a full belt of those corner pieces coming in. That means that now all we need to do is actually split that up again. There we go, and then have an assembler like so. This is going to be like this is going to be like that, and then that's going to be one corner piece. I can copy paste that recipe. Let's mirror that one, so they're both going to end up in the middle. And then why is that one? Hold on. There we go. I was about to say I need to have them of different colors, please. Thank you. And then there we go. That is another new module created, and that is going to be the last one that we need. So now all I need to do is connect up some cranes over here. Have a thingy over here. Let's just double check the output. Yeah, this seems to be all working exactly like we want. I know that some of this is producing at 50% capacity, but that's just because there's not enough materials on the belt to make any more. As you can see, these middle parts are optimized, even though the belt looks like it's full. Look at that beautiful green build. Okay, so this seems to kind of fit in the middle quite nicely. I also like that we don't need any further cooling stuff. It also seems that we are probably not making enough cooling exactly, because now suddenly the bottom part over here is struggling a little bit. Yeah, these machines are they getting enough cooling? Maybe. Ooh, it's definitely close. As you can see, these drones are kind of running out of material. Huh. Well, that's not the biggest thing to fix. That should take care of itself mostly. But as you can see, my build is now actually done. So I can start to auto-upgrade this as well. And then all I need to do is maybe grab this island and set up some data processors, because we are going to be making yellow science now. And there we go. You can see the first nice yellow cubes on the pipeline into my delivery dock. And if you look at this, this is going to be producing about 40 per minute, which honestly is a little less than I would like it to be. But yeah, it is of course one of the last sciences that we need, so this is going to have to do. Now, I actually only need a single data center to handle the output, because as you can see, this is going to take in 60, and it's also going to take in 60 of the blue cubes, and I'm producing about that as well, but I have 11,000 in store, so you know I'm not going to run out of those anytime soon. Okay, yellow data shard assimilated, energy flow and expressions are now more clearly defined. To continue, each contribution brings us into clear alignment and opens up your path to technological advancement. So that means that, look, they're flowing in. We're going to need quite a bit of yellow science in order to unlock everything else in this technology tree. Specifically, the yellow spire is going to take 1,000, but you know, I have the first 1% of that done already. Okay, that also means that now is a very good time to work on some of the modules, not just because of the reason that we have some time to spend, but also because this is going to give us more experience, unlock us with some more ranks, and therefore, you know, allow us to clear up some more of those islands on the map. Alternatively, let me think about that for a moment though, because alternatively what we could do is we could make some robots. We have these mechs that we can produce over here that also just require very similar things compared to what we've been making before as well. We have, just over here actually, we have an entire belt of yellow stuff that we could use for that as well. But I'm kind of inclined to use that maybe on something like the challenges, because you don't need that much output for challenges. You just need to make it once, even with minimal output, let it run for a little while. And then of course, once you have the delivery quota met, you are kind of done. So again, this I think is the perfect moment to do that, because that also means that while we're collecting some of this science, we can start to benefit from that. This is going to allow us to increase our production by unlocking the additional floors. Some quality of life things like additional tunnel distance and stuff like that. Nothing really important, honestly. But, you know, upgrading our advanced cutters and assemblers and things like that. Ooh, the monotoner speed upgrade is actually going to be really sweet. Yeah, so, long story short, let's get some of those upgrades done, those challenges done, is what I meant, and then we can do the upgrades in the meanwhile. I'm not going to go through building all of this step by step because I think pretty much most of it is straightforward enough that you don't need my help with that. But in case you are wondering, this is a nice little build that makes the first of the blue challenge mods. Yeah, just a couple of cutters stitching back together all the 1x4 pieces and you get what you need. The second build over here is making this honestly kind of interesting build. So I'm just splitting things up into 4, the large blocks into 4. So the main piece over here is here. Then I'm cutting down that in half to make the 2x2 blocks. I'm stamping out a little piece of that to make this corner piece. And then I am stamping out a little piece to put on top of that. So, you know, you stitch all of that back together and you get what you need there. And then this part is even simpler. All you need is a lot of stampers. And yeah, I'm throwing a lot of materials away. But remember, these builds are all temporary. So once you complete the module challenge, you're never going to make that piece again. So you might as well just delete the build. And if you are thinking like, well, this isn't going fast enough, then by all means, you know, just copy paste the build and stamp it a few more times and you'll be done with those challenges in no time. In the meanwhile, I'm slowly getting a little bit of yellow signs as well. You can see how little signs I gained while building all 3 of these challenge builds, so nothing really complicated here. Now, once I complete a little bit of all of these, the nice thing is the next row unlocks. These are a little bit more complicated, but again, the only complicated part about this is that we're going to need the more advanced machines. So I think it's time to make some more coolant. And here's a couple of builds for the second row of those challenges. So I am making this one over here. And again, I'm just making the initial one colored block first, and then I'm combining those. So I'm doing that over here by cutting it into the normal 4x4 squares, stamping out the middle to get, let me show you, these 2 parts over here. And then with the remaining 4x4 ones, I just cut them up into 2x4 pieces. So those are those. I'm recombining those to make those side-by-side ones over here. And then the second step, or the last step, is making the piece that you see over here. Then all you need to do is make that in 2 colors, combine them, overlap them, and you are alright done. And that makes the first module. Then on top, I think over here, yep, I'm making this one. This was a little bit more complex, and you can see actually the production speed is quite slow as well. So what I'm doing up here is I'm splitting them up. Oh, hold on, I'm starting here actually. So I'm splitting them up into these 2x4x4 pieces, so the half blocks basically. And I'm stamping out the middle part. That makes this piece over here. I'm painting that white, and you can see I'm doing that over here. Then the remaining part I'm actually using to make everything else. So I'm cutting those pieces into 2x2s. I'm cutting those into 1x2s. Then I'm taking some of those and I'm making these side pieces over here. Then I am painting those black because those need to be black. And I am using the remaining pieces over here. I am painting some of those black as well. And then I'm recombining all of that. Hold on, where am I doing that actually? I lost track. Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing over here, but I'm keeping those blue. Then I'm tying those together with these assemblers to make this piece over here. And then I'm taking a few of those black pieces that I now cut up, and I'm putting those in between. Is this efficient? Probably not. Nope. As you can see, it's not. Does it do what it needs to do? Yes, it does. Because once I have these pieces over here, I need 4 of those to go around one of those white pieces, which I'm doing over here. And then all I need to do is bring out this piece. This is almost done. You can see I'm just missing those corner pieces. Bring those into the corner piece production part and slap on some of those corner pieces, and then you get what you need. Now, I'm doing that twice, so this bottom half of the build is doing the exact same thing. This is compensating a little bit for the fact that this is so inefficient. But again, you set it up, or let it run for a couple of minutes, and you never have to bother about it ever again. So there's just no efficiency in optimizing these builds. Then, last but not least, we have this one over here. I think this one is about as inefficient as the one above, but still. Cutting that up in pieces, I am taking the 4x4 pieces, cutting out the middle part, and then painting that white, at least in this part. What I'm doing with that is cutting those into 1x2 pieces and then recombining them to make those little pieces over here. Then for the rest of the build, what I'm doing is I'm cutting those 4x4s into 2x4s. Then I am combining those with the remaining parts that I cut out over here. So you can see I get those 2x4s and those corner pieces over here. And then if you slap them together, you get the exact shape that you need. Now I need that in 3 colors, as you can see. So what I'm doing is I'm basically just copying the top part of the build over here. And I'm doing that once more, but then with one difference, that I'm painting some of those pieces black. So I make the little jiggling piece over here and painting it black. Doing it once more over here and painting that white. And then all you need is to recombine that with the side pieces that I've already made. Slap those pieces together, of course, the different colored pieces, and you're done. Is this slow? Yes. Do I care? No, because I've only had this running for a couple of minutes, and you can see I already completed the first 2 levels. So once I produce 4 times more, because you need 200 for the second level, once I've produced 800, I will delete this build and never look at it ever again. The next 3 challenge builds are all pretty straightforward, and they give a fair amount of experience as well as science, so that's a nice little bonus. So you can see over here, I made a very tiny build actually that is going to make the initial one. This is going to split things up in the normal 4x4. We're going to recombine them to make the initial platform. Then we're stamping out the middle in order to, you know, get these blocks out. We are splitting up those blocks into 2x2 because we need 1 black and 1 white. So that's what I'm doing over here. I'm recombining them, stitching the block back together again, and then I'm doing that 2 times so I can make the block up here as well as the kind of mirrored one down there. So that one is super easy and actually very fast producing as well. Then the next one over here is definitely a little bit more complicated. So what I'm doing is I'm making the 4x4s. I'm painting one of them white, and then I'm stamping the middle section out. Then you kind of get the half or the double version of this, because if I cut that up, I get the nice little hook type of things I need over here. I'm recombining them to make the outside of this. I'm also doing these exact same things. I'm stamping out the middle of a yellow part. That's actually going to be this piece, because the middle part is going to be black. So I'm taking that middle part, painting that black, and then stitching that right back on top. And then all I need to do is take that 1 block that I punched out in the beginning. I'm painting that black as well. And then I'm stitching that on top there as well. And if you can see, this kind of makes the top half of this build over here. Now, I can do that twice, and then stitch those back together, and you get the second item that you need. I'm actually not wasting any production here. I don't think this is completely optimized though. No, as you can see, it's not. But it is running at a fast enough speed for me and not to care, because again, this is a temporary build. Then for the last one, I took advantage of some of the advanced stampers, mostly because otherwise this is a lot of work. I wanted to keep the build a little bit small. So what I've done over here is I used a double stamp to cut out the middle section from 2 directions, because this thing is actually hollow, as you can see over here. I'm using another stamper to cut out the middle parts once more. Now this is going to allow me to make these side-by-side pieces and then cut those out again to make the black pillars that are going to be sitting in the middle of this. I need to paint them black though, so this is what I'm doing over here. Then with the remaining pieces, I can, as you can see, this is actually cutting out these two sections, which are the two white sections I have over here, without anything in between because the rest is hollow. I am painting those white and combining them with the black pieces. Then I'm doing that once more, and I kind of have the inner section done of this module over here. Then I need to stitch a lot of yellow pieces on top of that, but we've been cutting those out. So over here I'm wasting a little bit of the intersection that I took out at the beginning, but everything else I am just splitting up into two pieces. Then I am just slowly, piece by piece. I could probably do this with an advanced assembler as well, but I don't know, this kind of looks nice. I'm stitching the yellow piece on at the bottom over here. Then I'm bringing that piece and I'm using the same overflow that I cut out from before over here. So over here I'm actually cutting out, let me show you. Where I cut out the pieces that will eventually be black, I also cut out a lot of pieces that I kind of need to make the yellow circle at the top, I guess, if the other part was the bottom. So I'm doing the same thing here, slowly stitching those on, and then we are done. Again, this is a pretty slow build. That's not really a problem because we needed to wait for the blue builds to complete anyway, which I think, let me double check. Yeah, almost done. 2 pieces to go actually. So once this is done, I can just double up for this build. You can see the other two are really fast that are already done. Anyway, so now I am done with this blue piece. I can just demolish that and copy the piece that I have, copy the build that I have over here for the low version. And then all I need to do is make sure I hook this up to a belt. The next set of challenges you are either going to hate or love, and I kind of enjoy this one, to be honest. As you can see, these are just 1x4 pieces, but in all kinds of different colors. So that means we're going to just need to make a whole bunch of them, make them into the right colors, and then stitch them all back together again. This one, kind of the same thing. May look different, but all in all, this is mostly made from 4x4s, with the exception of the middle part over here, actually. This one is exactly that, so it's just the same colors again. Kind of making a rainbow almost. I don't know, I kind of find them fun, but more importantly, they are going to provide us with a huge amount of experience. So if you haven't locked all the islands yet, then this is definitely going to help you do that. That also means that an entire row is very easy to make, because all you need to do is have 4 different colors of blocks coming in if you want to keep things simple, slice them up into the tiniest pieces that you can, and then just stitch them back together in such a way that you slowly start to recombine the block once more if you go for the first one. For the last one, that's actually very similar, just a different stitching of the blocks back together, kind of make a rainbow and then tie 4 of those rainbows together. It's a little bit slow if you do it like this, but you know, again, it's just going to take a few minutes longer. And then the middle piece is actually slightly more complicated, as you can see over here. I've been using these advanced assemblers to make that shape, so actually don't know why it unlinked, but let's spin them for a moment. There we go. So I'm talking about this shape over here, because there's not just 1x4 blocks in here, but there's actually a 2x2 block square or cube in there as well. So what I'm doing over here is basically making the same sticks again, but then also using a part of those sticks that I cut out and then recombining those into the platforms. And then last but not least, there's a couple of things that you slice up that you then just slice into those blocks, paint them black or white in the case of the second build, and then just stick them back together. And that way you get the bottom half, so that is the piece over here. And then you do the exact same thing, but then with the blue blocks and white paint coming in, and that's it. That is another row of modules done. Only 2 rows left actually, and considering we have all the materials I need to make those, I'm just gonna go and do that as well. Do I need to run you through these builds? Let me know in the comments. I don't think it's that complicated, to be fair, and this is just kind of getting repetitive, I assume. So I'm gonna skip past this and go straight to the last bot production lanes. Honestly, at this point, the challenges are really optional, although you do get a fair amount of science as well as experience from them, but you probably already have all the islands that you need, so there's not a huge pressure to do that. What I do recommend that you get first is the upgrades to the yellow floor buildings, the yellow building floors, I mean, because that will allow you to produce more with the same amount of stuff. And similarly, what you can do is also get yourself the superior core facility, because this will allow you to double your production there as well. Then last but not least, I would recommend that you focus on, where are they? Over here, on the upgrades for your conveyor speeds, your extractor speeds, your miners, your furnaces, and your oil. Well, the oil rigs is not really necessary, but at least these four will allow you to just produce a lot more stuff. Then there's a couple of nice quality of life upgrades. You can upgrade your dye mixer even further. This will allow you to get more dye for the same materials. The monotoner speed upgrades are kind of nice. And so what else? What else? Well, honestly, all the upgrades to all the other buildings are, of course, very nice to have. The last thing you should probably be getting are things like tunnel distance, skylines, and stuff like that. Those are not really vital. Just make sure you get things that optimize your production. Now, you will notice that there's a whole new technology tree popping up as soon as you unlock the yellow spire. We'll get to that probably in the next episode, but for now, let's make ourselves some robots. Thanks to all the upgrades, I'm producing way more cores now than I need, so that's a very nice way to start some robot production. If you want to make life easy for yourself at this point, what you can do is just bring in some of that mass production that we've been doing before. So as you can see, I'm making a huge amount of the yellow blocks over here. I'm importing a similar amount of blue blocks over here. I am just making a huge amount of coolant over here, and I have this whole battery of these supply tanks ready to do whatever I need them to do. There's a couple of different ways that you can approach the true end game of this. What I recommend at this point you do is just focus your production on a couple of things. Make sure you get your science up and running in the meanwhile, and then make sure that you kind of just rebuild your entire base, because the true end game of this game is nothing like the first two parts of the early and the mid games, basically. So yeah, anyway. Let's get to that, because that will be covered in the next episode. But for now, well, let's see. What do we want to make? Well, we want to make some mechs. We have mechs and we have ultra mechs. What I recommend that you do is focus on the normal mechs first, because we also skipped something, and that is, where are they? They might actually be in the previous technology tree. Hyperbots. You need basic cores and advanced cores to make them. And it's another way of getting your experience up and running. But you also need the yellow cubes that you can see in the modules. So this is why we skipped them initially, but let's get going with the mechs first, because these are really easy to make, and it will give you quite a bit of experience in terms of meeting your delivery targets. So let's set those up. As you can see, nothing too fancy here. We just need a huge amount of yellow blocks in order to make this thing. Just a tiny little bit of yellow and white to make the rest, and I think that's probably going to be made from the cutouts of this. I don't know. Not quite. Almost, though. It's interesting. So actually, this is 2x4, and this is a 2x4. So yeah, you can actually make it from the cutouts. That's interesting. And then last but not least, we have this tiny little table shape over here. Let's get going with this first big one and take it from there. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a couple of smelters over here to make 2 full belts, and now a full belt is 240 per minute of yellow blocks. I'm only going to use half of this, because what I'm going to do is I'm gonna split these in 2. Then one of this 50% of belt, so this is 120 per minute, is going to go into making this block. And then the other half is going to make these 2 items actually. And that should be enough to make 30 per minute of the big one, and then 60 per minute of the other 2. And that should be enough to get this up and running. Now, as you can see, we can actually have more cranes on this, but this makes the build nice and compact, and I can always just double up on it if I want by using this other belt over here. Now, the nice thing about having these 3 pieces is that I can use those into a advanced assembler, and then I just need to flip them around a little bit, but there you go. You can already see this kind of shaping up. This is all the yellow pieces that we need. Now we just need those 2 black pieces on top. Luckily, we can make that out of the last little belt that we have left over. All we need to do in order to then get that going is, is cutting up the squares into 2 pieces, sticking them back together again, and then using a monotoner to paint them black. And the monotoner can now actually handle 60 per minute because I upgraded it. Yay! Okay, so now all I need to do is probably flip that around like this. and then stick that on top of that. And then we need another one of those, but we'll actually hold on with that for a second, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down a little bit like so. Then I'm going to copy this entire build, flip it around. There you go. And then combining that with that should allow us to make the entire piece that we need. Now, of course, the annoying thing is we still need to hook up some supply drones. Well, it's not the end of the world, but I actually kind of like keeping my supply drones like all the way out here. Honestly, if you upgrade them a couple of times, as you can see, these drones are really fast, so they don't need to be right in your facility. So you can just stick them to the side a little bit. Now, let's see. We get this, and we get that. We flip that around, and that should give us the first module created. Yes, there we go. Okay, so this is the slow one, so let's stick that in there, and then we have 2 more to make. Of course, this shape is extremely simple, so all we need to do is cut up some blocks. So we cut them up once again to smaller pieces, and then we take those pieces, we cut one of them up into even smaller pieces, which gives us 3 belts actually, all of which are going to be moving at 60 per second if we split the output from this one up. And then we can use one of these to combine it into the shape that we need. There we go. Now, by the way, if you're wondering, because this is apparently something that not everyone knows or not everyone realizes, so let me reset this for a moment. So if you want to make a shape like this, and then the other one needs to be not like attached to this, but just flying in the air, you can use these X and Z buttons to do exactly that. So, you know, there we go. That's going to make one of those shapes. Now, of course, we need the same shape then in white. So I can just copy this. Let's make sure I have the copy button, because I always forget that. And then we can flip that around. Now, what speed is this producing at? I think it was 60, right? Yeah, so that means we can just paint it near the end. Let's make sure it has some fuel. That's this one then. There we go. And all we need to do is add a monotoner to this. Make sure it's toggled to white. And then if we bring this in, I'm actually running out of space here a little bit, so hold on. Let's move that back just a wee bit. I know this is a little bit spaghetti, but I'll clean that up in a second. Let's just get it to work first. Can this actually be done through a machine like this? Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. No, not like that. Don't worry, I'll get it eventually. There we go. Nope, I can't do that. It needs to be a bigger one. I was a little bit afraid of that. That's okay. There we go. And this one should do the trick. Okay, there we go. That looks a little bit better at least. And that just leaves us this last piece to make. Now we have another belt over here already good to go for that. And it looks like we'll do some cutting and then rebalancing once more. This time around, however, we're going to need to take these little slices and then, let's see, we're gonna cut out this part of it, because remember, this part needs to be recolored, and we actually have the other or 2 remaining or 4 remaining blocks that come out of the middle that needs to be repainted as well. So what we can do is have this be like this, I think, yeah. Then we can paint this white, not black, white, there we go. And then we can cut those, and we can cut those to small little pieces like that. Then we can feed those pieces. Actually, hold on. There's a couple of ways of doing this, but I think this is the most efficient way, probably. Let's see. We will need an overflow splitter. There we go. That's an overflow splitter. And then we will do this. This is going to go and do this. There we go. And then we will take a normal splitter. Like so. The overflow is going to go in here. And then we are going to take an advanced assembler because I'm lazy. And that is going to take these 2 pieces. We're going to take them like this. That was not the piece I wanted to move. There we go. Oh, I really suck after all of this time still. I'm doing that, but that's exactly where that needed to go. There we go. And then do it like this. I know it's sticking out the wrong way, but that doesn't really matter, the orientation. So, then let's make that. We will probably want to mirror that. That looks a little cleaner. And then, basically what I want to do is copy this entire thing once more. And this will make the other piece, which I can then fit into, I think this will fit in a normal assembler, right? Oh, you're not getting any delivery yet, so there we go. I really wish you could make these in a setting so they would automatically detect any building in the range requiring coolant. It's a little annoying to have to set them up every time, but anyway. Oh, hold on. So this one can do this one, and then this one can just flip that around a few more times. And then, there we go. That is another new module created. Now, however, the main issue is that this is only going to produce half of what we need. Luckily, we have the other half of this belt over here as well. So, all of this is going to be copied, like so. And then, I really need to start learning how to copy. I know I've been saying that since the first episode, and I still can't do it, so you know. I might have a skill issue there. There we go. No, hold on. Moving this up just a little bit. You probably don't need to see all of this, but you're going to get it anyway. Okay, there we go. This can be removed. And then this can be connected to that. And then I need to clear out some leftover belts. Right? Yes, maybe. All I need to do now is make sure these things are actually being supplied, of course, by some drones. And now we have this all up and running. Now, this machine is a large building, so it's also going to need oil, but we have that right next door. All we need to do now is hook up the oil, hook up the cores, and look at that. We have a little dudes that for some reason change position once they go up on the rail over there, and then change back again once they go down. I don't know. But we have those coming in, so that means we are now starting to deliver our mechs. And as you can see, that actually goes pretty quick once you have this set up and running. If you really want, as you can see, we're only using half a belt over here, so I could just double up on this production and double up on the speed of our mechs. Hey, editing TDA here. As I was editing this episode and preparing for the next couple of steps, I realized that most of those steps are probably better contained in their own episode, making it a little bit easier to follow along with progress, because what I want to do next is actually setting up for the very late game in the most efficient way that I can do. And, well, honestly, that just means that it's better to end this episode here with the mech production in full gear. As you can see, where is it? Yeah, we're making some pretty good headway into that. But the Hypermechs as well as the Ultramechs are actually easier to make if you do it slightly different and combine it with the endgame preparation. So, I'm going to end this episode here, and I'm very much looking forward to catching you in the next one. So make sure you join me for that, because that is going to be amazing and super satisfying. At least that's what I'm hoping. Either way, if you're still here, you're awesome. And like I said, I hope to catch you in the next one.